All right. Man, oh man, YouTube, it has been a minute, man. Um, I haven't uploaded a video to my YouTube channel in, I don't know. I actually don't know. It's probably been a month or something. I was doing my Disco Elysium playthrough, which I'll get back to. I'll all two or three of you who have watched any of those videos, have no fear. I'll be back. I will continue playing through Disco Elysium. It's just I'm a full-time student right now. I'm part-time working. I have a husband. Um, I have a cat, so I'm a father. Um, and I'm just in recent months, I've just been on such a creative kick. I just feel like I'm kind of like having a bit of a personal creative renaissance, which is awesome. It's been really cool. I for a while have wanted to make YouTube videos for fun. All these things I do is just for fun. I don't have crazy ambitions. Um, so I just started doing it finally, and that was a lot of fun. Um, and I think like what's kicked off this kind of creative renaissance, I'm calling it for myself, is actually um, I found this YouTube channel a while ago now, probably maybe 4 or 5 months ago. Sounds about right. Called Skeleton Realm Live. Anyone who watches this, I highly recommend that you go subscribe and you check out Skeleton Realm Live. They go live on Wednesdays at 8 o'clock, and it's just some really really funny absurdist humor. The hosts Doug, Doug and Sam. Um, they're just so funny, and Doug is super high octane, off the walls, very like if you have ADHD like I do, you probably can understand his energy and understand his vibe because it's super frenetic, um, and super just wild and out there. And then Sam is like a straight man. He's just very um, grounded and but they're both like they're in like an alternate universe basically is how it feels, and they do these hilarious skits and bits and everything. But so I got super into their live streams, and it was just like it's inspiring because they're doing what feels to me like a new. It feels like they're doing something new, you know. Um, it's I was immediately drawn to it because it's like it felt like it was speaking to a sense of humor that I've had but I've never been able to articulate really. And it was just weird to see someone else on the internet just going out there and like embodying it, you know. So it's been cool and it's been inspiring. So I've started a number of things just because I got inspired by them. And one of them was this silly little web kind of choose your own adventure um, comic strip thing that I made. It was called Plim Blep. It was about this kind of sort of an interdimensional being who one day pops up in front of our main character, and then the prompt was just like, "Oh no, Plim Blep's back. What are we gonna do?" And this was in the Skeleton Realm Live Discord that I started this, and the community for Skeleton Realm Live is amazing. Just super creative and supportive people. Very funny group of people. Um, I recommend anyone who gets into the YouTube channel Skeleton Realm Live also join the Discord, because super welcoming group of people. And I just brought up to Discord like, oh, I have this idea for this choose your own adventure comic strip. Do you think like there'd be a place in the Discord for that? And they just made me a thread, and I started doing it, and a bunch of people were playing along, like with choosing their own adventure, for the prompts for the story, and just started being this really fun thing that I was putting a lot of time into. I would just make the comic strips on Canva, but I put a lot of effort into those strips, like a lot of effort, and some of them I'm really proud of, and that's another thing that I intend to come back to. But look, this like I said, I'm a full-time student, and I started that over the summer, and right now excuse me, it's September 27th at the time of recording this. So school started, not very long ago, and when school started for me, as a full-time student, my free time for creative pursuits like that just kind of dried up pretty fast. And so that's without saying, the Disco Elysium playthrough also kind of just had to go on hold because I don't have the time. Again, I'm also an employee for a job. I don't want to dox myself. I don't want to say what I do. But so yeah, kind of lost a lot of time, but also something that I've really gotten into is tie-dye, which might sound kind of left field, but like me and my wife just we were looking for little fun things to do together for a date night or whatever, and we had the idea of trying out tie-dye, and I hadn't tie-dyed since I was a kid, and a lot of us have probably had or been to a tie-dye event at some point in our childhoods. And so I hadn't done it in a long time. And so we just got a cheap little tie-dye, kit off of Amazon. Actually, I think I have it still lying around. It isn't there. But I tried it out, and I was immediately just like, holy, like, there are so many possibilities with tie-dye. You can just like, the sky is the limit for what you can do with it. And I just, I got on the tie-dye subreddit, was looking at other people's work, and I was just like, I've been like unaware of how cool honestly to me it's an art style, but how cool the world of tie-dye is. And so the tie-dye kit we got, is just cheap Amazon kit, and so it's the quality of the dye you use and everything, and a few steps that you need to take to like treat the fabric before you do it. There's something called soda ash, which is basically baking soda. Once you heat baking soda to a certain temperature, a chemical reaction happens, and then it turns into soda ash, which you use to treat the fabric, which will does it raise or lower the pH? I think it raises the pH level of the fabric. I'm not, I'm still new. I know I need to use soda ash, and I do. And I know it changes the pH, but I forget if it raises or lowers it. And so you soak it in a soda ash solution, which is just a combination of soda ash and water. You need to soak the fabric for like about 30 minutes at least. And then you use quality dyes, and I found pretty quickly on the subreddit that the most popular brand for tie-dye dyes seems to be this company called Dharma Dye, and they've got tons of colors to select from. I'm just gonna start doing an advertisement for Dharma Dye. I really like them because it's you can get a good amount of dye for really cheap. And so let me actually grab some. Like these are like 2 ounce containers of dye. This is my fire red color, which is this color on my shirt, and that's a shirt that I made. I think that this shirt is actually my favorite so far. It's definitely the most simple style I've done, but you can do anything with tie-dye and I encourage you all to look into it. People make some incredibly complex and just mind-blowing designs with tie-dye, with super fine lines and extremely vibrant colors, and there's some really impressive things out there. My skill level is just not there yet. And so I can make, a spiral pattern. I can do the basic stuff, but it kind of struck me that I was like, I don't really see just super simple designs. Because this is an extremely simple tie-dye design. It's just red, yellow, green, just one fold down the center of the shirt, and I just did a square here. You can kind of see the outline. Filled that in with red, did a yellow on the outside of that, and then green towards the end. So super duper simple, but my idea was just I have a feeling that more simple designs for my stage in tie-dye are going to give me the most value. Because there's something you think about modern art or whatever. There's something that's really striking about super obtuse and just bold but basic pieces of art. And that's kind of what I was going for with this. It's just something that's super duper simple but emotionally resonant because of it's striking, just because it's striking, I guess. And so, as you can tell with my rambling, I'm quite excited about tie-dye right now. I'm quite excited. I have a couple other shirts back here. These are shirts that I've made for my niece and nephew. I'm thinking this one this one will probably be for my niece. This was a ice dye. You use ice cubes. Um, so the dye comes in a powder form, and so you can fold your shirt however you want, and then once you're ready to start it, you can put the dye directly on the shirt in whatever pattern you want, and then put ice cubes on top. Or some people, and I'm actually trying this technique right now. I have another set curing where you put the dye on top of the ice after you put the ice on the shirt. But yeah, this one was the dye directly on the shirt with the ice on top, and I just love the colors. You know, there's that nice brown that's like melting into the yellow with the purple, and the really dark, like, I think that's a black color, but it's got a lot of blue in it. It's like a more blue based black, if you will. And then those nice highlights down there. Really lovely. And then I'm thinking this one will be for my nephew. He's right now he's way too tiny for this, so he'll have to wait. I'm not really decided that these are going to be the ones that they get. I recently made a order for 65 blank T-shirts of varying sizes. So which is a investment. You know, I'm very excited about tie dye, and I think it's something I'm going to be doing potentially for the rest of my life, because it's very satisfying. Like, if you've never tried tie dyeing yourself, you'll find that it's just immediately gratifying to do. But I made an order of 65 shirts, so I have tons of time and material to practice with to really get shirts that I'm happy with for for all my loved ones. But I was super happy with the way these turned out. But I could probably make better, so I might. Anyway. And then this is like a squeeze bottle. So this already has, it has a little bit of my fire red dye that's been mixed with water. I'll have to fill it up again soon. But yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to show you a couple of these things because I'm so excited about tie-dye. So yeah, I've got my 65 shirts. They're in my bedroom right now. I've got another order from Dharma Dye inbound that's coming. I ordered about 12 new colors, a bunch of more squeeze bottles because I'll need more, and a few other tools or whatever. Because my plan is to actually start selling tie-dye shirts. And part of that is because, why not? My wife, she's a fiber artist. She does crochet, she does knitting, she does embroidery, stitch, sewing, basically anything with that involves yarn. Hi, Tuesday. Come here. Come here. You want to be on the YouTube? Come on. Come on. Come be on YouTube. Oh. Tuesday want to be on YouTube. This is my cat. Look at her. She pretends to not like to be held, but she does like to be held. Because she's a baby. She's just a baby. Oh. I love you, Tuesday. She's gonna climb on my my desk here as I'm talking, so that'll be a fun distraction. Anyway, tie-dye. Really, tie-dye has been kind of taking most of my creative energy. Not taking it. I've been intentionally allowing my creative energy to be spent mostly on tie-dye right now. Which is, there's only so many hours in the day. I can't really be committing as much time as I want to my tie-dyeing and also be able to do all my homework, participate in class, work my job, be my wife's husband, all of the things that a adult needs to do, and also be like uploading Disco Elysium videos to YouTube and all of that, or recording for that matter. So it's just been I've had more things that I want to do than I have time in the day, which is my favorite place to be, because that means like how can I be bored if there's that many, artistic projects that I want to be doing, it's a good feeling to feel like, you've got more passions and interests than you have time in the day to satisfy, keeps you moving in a good way. But yeah, I want to sell shirts because, for one, my wife sells her fiber art. We do craft fairs, especially around this time of year. And those are so much fun. I absolutely love doing the craft fairs with my wife. And I figured, if I'm going to be making tie-dye shirts, might as well see if I can sell some, with her at her craft fairs. I might make like, a Squarespace or an Etsy shop, or try to sell some things on Instagram or something. Who knows? And again, it's for fun. And really, it's because, like, really at the end of the day, the main reason that I want to sell them is kind of so I have an excuse to keep just churning out obscene amounts of tie-dye shirts. Like, I'm making like 2 shirts a day right now because I have 65 shirts, just waiting. And my house is only so big. My house can only contain so many tie-dye shirts. And I can only wear so many tie-dye shirts. I can't keep all these shirts to myself. But I want to keep making them because it's like the actual process of tie-dyeing a shirt, it's just so, like, it's therapeutic, it's really relaxing, it's exciting because you apply the dye and everything and you come up with whatever sort of folding pattern you want, and you have an idea for what you want the shirt to maybe look like when it comes out, but you can never know for sure what you're going to get. And with tie dyeing, you have to, after you dye the shirt, you have to let it sit for, most people say at least 24 hours because there's a chemical reaction that needs to happen with the dye and the fabric, for the dye to actually like bond to the fabric. It's more about like the conditions, like the shirt needs to reach a certain temperature, which is like over 70 degrees. But like, anyway, most people say you need to let the shirt sit for at least 24 hours. And so there's this like really great like anticipation where you're waiting. So you have something to look forward to throughout the day. And then, you have to, after the shirt's done curing, which is just letting it sit, you have to rinse it out. And so there's a really long washing process. Like it takes a good bit of washing to get all the excess dye and soda ash out of the shirt. And then you get to like take off all the bindings, all the rubber bands or the sinew or the string or whatever you use to tie it up. And then you get to, pull it out, undo all the folds, and you get the reveal. And it's just, you never know what you're going to get, really. And so every time you're like surprised in a good way. And it's just awesome. I just really love it. And, yeah, so that's part of the reason I want to sell them is like, I just really enjoy this as a hobby, and to make it a justifiable expense, and just to make it logistically make sense for my lifestyle. Selling them seems like a kind of a necessity, and then also, you get to share that with other people. You get to share the something that you're passionate about with other people. Like part of me is always worried about making a hobby of mine or a passion of mine into a product, because a big part of me, kind of more of the high school brained, anti-capitalist or whatever mindset is like, that's selling out. That's turning your passion into a product is like inherently, bad. But I've watched how my wife navigates, her art, and she's been doing crochet art and fiber arts since she was in elementary school. And it's still to this day something that she's genuinely passionate and excited about. And she's been selling things for years, and it's never turned into for her, a grind or just like a cynical, like, I'm doing this to make money thing, because at the end of the day, like, you make some money at the craft fairs, you make some money selling things online. You still need, for most of us, you still need a 9-to-5 job, and she has a 9-to-5 job. So it's, at the end of the day, it is a hobby, and to me, like, selling the stuff kind of just justifies the amount of time you want to spend, and like having space that isn't just occupied by a stack of, an endless stack of tie-dye t-shirts in your house, so anyway, I know I didn't need to spend that much time justifying selling tie-dye shirts, but I wanted to, so I did. But actually, I think that's enough time spent on tie-dye, although I could talk about it, as you can probably tell, for hours. The reason that I wanted to make a video today is actually because my wife and I, for date night last night, went to see the new movie called The Substance in theaters. Um, and The Substance is like a okay. So I'm gonna start talking about this movie. I've never done like a movie review video or anything like that. So I just want to start this by saying I will 100% be getting into spoilers. Because I don't think I have the I would have to write a script, I think, to avoid doing that. And I have ADHD, and I already have homework for school that I need to do. I ain't writing a script for a video right now, not at this stage of my life. Sorry. I'm just gonna talk about it, and there will be spoilers. So if you're really interested in seeing The Substance, which here, before I get into spoilers, I should say I highly, highly recommend going to see The Substance in theaters. With the caveat that this is a extreme movie. This movie is extreme in almost every way it could be. Is by no means an easy watch. If you're someone who is squeamish, and I myself am pretty squeamish, you just need to be prepared. I'll say here's maybe a good way to put it. There were multiple points throughout this movie that I had to shield my eyes from the screen. Like it's that sort of a movie. It will, if you're not like a hardened sociopath or, you know, maybe a surgeon, this movie will make you squirm. But it was amazing. Like, it was amazing. I don't think I've ever had a reaction to a film like I did last night watching The Substance. There were points during the movie that I was like I said, like literally covering my eyes and squirming and, you know, all of that. And there were times in the movie where I was belly laughing uncontrollably. I couldn't help it. And there were times that, you know, I was on the edge of my seat with suspense, and at the end of the movie, I was literally fist pumping with enthusiasm because I was so happy with the way the movie ended. Like, it was such a satisfying, perfect, conclusive, tying everything up thematically, and like just such a like chef's kiss, perfect ending to this movie. Me and my wife were literally pumping our fists in the theater. We were sitting in the back row, so we could get away with it. But yeah, the movie is fantastic. So that was my non-spoiler recommendation that you go see the movie. Now, if you want to see the movie, click away from this video. Don't watch it. I'm about to spoil the movie. Okay, so the movie follows a Hollywood celebrity. I guess she was an actress who is 49, but we drop in. We start the story on her 50th birthday. And when we start the movie, she is you know those what do you call this, aerobic, like the very 80s style aerobic videos where they aerobic like workout um, videos where they would a lot of times have a celebrity come in and like host it, and it's like to music and like you're doing a dance or whatever, and it's supposed to be a workout, and they'd be on VCR tapes a lot. She does that. So she used to be like a household name superstar, and now she's kind of like in that position where she's not getting, lead roles in Hollywood anymore. She's she's doing aerobic videos. And it's her 50th birthday, and because she's turning 50, the producer, whose name is Harvey, which is, according to the director, intentionally, tipping the hat, tipping the hat. It's a reference to Harvey Weinstein. And he's this real gritty, grimy, sleazebag type of a guy. Everybody in this movie is a caricature. Like they're very heightened and like simplified versions of the type of person they are, So he's just like a, Hollywood sleazebag producer type. And, he sits her down and basically lets her know that she's going to be let go because she's turned 50. And so that kind of hits her hard. And on her way home after that meeting where she got fired, basically, she gets in a car accident. A really intense car accident scene, by the way. One of the more intense car accident scenes that I've seen. And so she goes to the hospital, but luckily for her, she basically got out without a scratch. And so the doctor's going like, oh yeah, my wife loves you, but she's like absolutely demoralized, and it's just like head down, and she starts weeping because mostly probably because she's been let go. She's reached 50 years old, and the producer guy basically told her like, once you hit 50, your viability in Hollywood as a woman is over. But so the doctor's assistant, after the doctor leaves the room, comes over and is like, there's just like one more little test that I gotta do. And she's like, what? I thought we were done. And he's like, no. And he starts like looking at her spine, and he says like, oh yeah, you'd be a perfect candidate. And she's like, what candidate? And he hands her this thumb drive that says The Substance on it. So she goes home, plugs into her computer, and this video that's basically a short little advertisement to The Substance plays, and where it explains that The Substance, which is basically like a black market drug, will turn you into a better version of yourself, a more perfect version of yourself. And so obviously this is very targeted for Elizabeth Sparkle, because she's just turned 50. She's feeling like her viability in Hollywood is gone. Even like the thing that we usually consider to be what happens to a washed up celebrity, which is like being the host of an aerobics, program, that is even gone for her. She can't do that anymore. And so she's kind of just at the end of her rope, and she very clearly derives all of her value as a person from external validation, excuse me. And so basically she decides to give the number that's listed on the thumb drive a call and order the substance, which takes her out to this really sketchy, like, it's just like a, what do you call it? Some warehouse that's just like tucked in this like alleyway, with an address that's literally just like spray painted above the door. And the crazy, like, this is where I start realizing like this movie is about to be really meticulous about detail, but like amazing. Is I'm pretty sure this is what happened. When she's on the phone talking to the guy ordering the substance, he, gives her the address for where to pick up her, pick up the substance. And so she scribbles it on her hand in pen. And it like shows the detail of like her handwriting, as she scribbles it on her hand. And when she shows up to this warehouse or whatever where she's picking up the substance, the handwriting, because it's like spray painted, the address is spray painted above the door, is like the exact same handwriting as what she wrote on her hand. Like it looks the same. Like, how everyone has different handwriting, and can pick up little characteristic details. Like it's all the same. Like it's formatted the exact same way. Like someone just like copied it literally off of her hand onto there. And I noticed that. I was like, whoa, this is gonna be wild. So she goes in, finds this like room with basically like PO boxes, and she has this little card that has her number that she uses to scan this little reader thing. Door opens up, she grabs her package, which has the substance, and all that in it, and then she takes it back home and she injects it into herself. And the scene where she injects it into herself and it starts to work is amazing, and like horrifying. So the way the substance works is it literally causes your cells to reproduce, like all of your cells. It causes them to start duplicating, and it literally builds another person who will then emerge from your back. And so like you watch as her pupil, like her eyeball, literally doubles. Like a pupil emerges and then like an iris pops out, and then you see an entire eyeball go like, and like it's trying to like, it's the wildest like visual effects, and it's very uncomfortable to watch. And yeah, this thing literally, this other person literally emerges from her back, like gory, like comes out of her back. And so she is now that person, but the catch is that every week, every 7 days, they have to swap. So she can go out and live her life as, and by the way, it's the other person that the substance makes is supposed to be, perfect. It's supposed to be a more perfect version of yourself. And so she's like, this beautiful younger woman. And So she goes out, but but every 7 days you have to come back to the body which you just left on the floor because you've crawled out of your body, which is just laying there on the floor with this huge hole in its back where you emerged. And so she has to literally stitch the hole along her spine back up as this new person. And she just leaves that body like in the bathroom. And so she goes out, and the first thing she does is she applies to be the replacement of Elizabeth Sparkle in the freaking in the the crap, what is it called, the aerobics program. Like, she applies for that position, so she's literally replacing herself as just like a younger version of herself, which is just so interesting that is what she decides to do. She doesn't have ambition for a new like life. She doesn't she doesn't want to do anything new with with this entirely new body, with this entirely new opportunity at like starting life again as like a 25-year-old very attractive woman in Hollywood. She wants to pick up the exact same job that she had and just, I guess, do that. Is very strange, because she could do anything. And obviously she's hired right away. And she does her first taping of an episode, which is just like it's basically just like softcore pornography. I don't think there's any nudity in that sequence. There's plenty of nudity in this movie. The part that I just explained about her actually taking the substance and the new version of herself, what she calls Sue. She her younger version of herself, she calls Sue. She goes by Sue. Shit, what was I saying? Damn, I really lost my train of thought. Anyway, damn it, I was saying something important. It's Sue. But oh yeah, no. That entire transformation part with her emerging from the back. Elizabeth Sparkle, she's completely naked in the bathroom. You see practically everything the whole time. And then Sue, as she emerges, she's also naked. So if you're someone who's like squeamish about nudity, this movie is quite heavy on nudity. Sorry. But in a very interesting and I think like completely tasteful way. Because you do get you get both sides of it, where because this movie thematically is so dense and so rich thematically. It's all about body image and the pressures that are put on women, especially in Hollywood and basically created by Hollywood, right? To be beautiful and to be young. And for every woman, that's a ticking, that's a clock ticking away. You only have, you have until 50 to be valuable in Hollywood, and in from that perspective in society at large. And so, a lot of this movie is like focused on concept of beauty and of the human body, um, and of like self-worth and all that stuff. And so you do get like with, it's super interesting with Elizabeth Sparkle, the way she's portrayed, in the bathroom before her, before taking the substance and stuff. She's fully nude, but in a very naturalistic portrayal. Like, it's meant to be highlighting the kind of just natural effects that aging has had on her body. It's not meant to be, um, you know, uh, sexually alluring or whatever. Um, it's just very much so like matter of fact, like here it is. And then as Sue emerges, it's very much so playing up, you know, how attractive she is, how young, she doesn't have wrinkles, her everything is, firm where it's supposed to be firm, and, you know, um, all of that. And it's like, it gets you into the mind frame of thinking like, yes, like being young and being attractive is better. It puts you in this like toxic mind frame just through the framing, which is clearly intentional. And like every time that we're, because every 7 weeks they switch, so every time we're with Sue living her life, everything's like super idealized. Like even the colors, just like in the environment, are like warmer and softer but vibrant. You're getting all these glamour shots of her in like slow motion, and like her doing all the, all these performances with the aerobics thing, and like she's very sexualized, and it's very heightened and idealized. And then every time that it goes back to Elizabeth, because she has to switch, it's very, very dreary. She basically just stays in her apartment, like won't go outside, because she finds that returning to Elizabeth's body after being Sue sucks. Because with Sue, she's young, she's beautiful, she's just basically started a new career which has, potentially boundless possibilities. And then when she goes back to Elizabeth, by comparison, she's old, she's lost her spark of youth, and she feels completely inadequate, because now she has this other version of herself, Sue, to compare herself to. And she's lost her career, she's got nothing going for her now, and so she immediately starts to resent having to switch back to Elizabeth. And it's just something that happens like that. It's just like I'm sure it's something that she didn't even anticipate, was how quick, once she becomes Sue, she absolutely resents having to be Elizabeth. And once she actually is Elizabeth, she completely resents Sue, because Sue becomes like a sort of a sex icon, like right away. And she gets her own show. And there's this huge billboard that's right outside of Elizabeth's window in her apartment, that's like looking right into the apartment. And it's got Sue on there, and she's like bent over in this really like provocative pose. And it says like new show, like coming soon or whatever. And you just watch Elizabeth just being absolutely haunted by this woman who she is, but like in a much realer way, can never be. It's like the themes in this movie are so amazing, and you can analyze it from so many different angles, I feel like, and it still will work. Um, and basically, like, she, she sees herself on, late night interview shows or late night talk shows, where she's giving this interview, where they're talking about her taking the position of Elizabeth Sparkle, um, in the aerobics show. And so the late night guy, the stand-in for like Jimmy Fallon or whatever, is like, oh yeah, were you a fan of Elizabeth Sparkle, growing up? Like, did you watch a lot of Elizabeth Sparkle? And she has this reaction where she's like, and she's like clearly disgusted by even being compared, or like having Elizabeth's name like come up, and she like completely disses Elizabeth on this show. And so we're watching Elizabeth watch this on TV, and she's like yelling at the TV, mocking herself. Like anything she says, she goes like me 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 me. It's like hilarious and devastating, because she has completely lost value in herself. Um, like that. She it's this fascinating thing where she is still her, regardless of whether or not she's in Elizabeth's body or Sue's body. But once she's in Sue or Elizabeth's body, respectively, she cannot relate to and does not empathize with, and just absolutely resents whichever other body she's outside of. So when she's Sue and she comes in and looks at Elizabeth, she's just disgusted. She's like, ugh, what a disgusting old worthless person. And like, and as the movie keeps going, and Elizabeth keeps getting more resentful of Sue, and jealous and just like self-loathing, she is making an increasingly disastrous mess of her apartment every single time they switch. Like, she's just like, I think it starts with her just because she's depressed. She's just sitting watching TV all the time, and just eating all her food, eating all her meals in front of the TV, and just leaves her dishes and like half-eaten food like all throughout the apartment, and it's just like a mess. And then as soon as she switches to Sue, she walks out and she's like, ugh, like, this is disgusting. Look at what Elizabeth did. And it's like this thing where she immediately does not, like, as soon as she switches, she doesn't take responsibility and doesn't even identify with having done these things herself, even though it's still her. And this repeated line throughout the movie that the guy who sells, I guess, the substance to people will always say, and it's like a tagline in the advertisement that she watches, is like, remember, you are one. Because technically, right, like, it's you. It literally came from your DNA. It shares your brain, and you're swapping consciousness, I guess, every single time you switch. And because she'll, as Sue, she'll call that same number to complain about the mess that Elizabeth is making, and how she's just like not taking care of herself, and it's just like, oh, it's disgusting, like, can't we do something about this? And the guy's like, remember, you are one. And she's like, ugh, like, she doesn't want to hear it, because she's just like, she thinks she's so much better than Elizabeth, but Elizabeth is her, and she's the one who's making these decisions to trash her place every time she switches because she's so jealous of Sue. Um, is so fascinating. Anyway, I'll skip a bunch of details because this video will end up way too long if I go into as much detail as I have been about everything. Sue, um, is given the opportunity to host this New Year's Eve show of some sort. It's like this. It's like the network's biggest event all year, and so like hosting it is a huge deal. And she's this huge rising star. It makes sense for her to be hosting this thing just because of the momentum and everything. She's what's in. But she has grown so resentful and disgusted with Elizabeth that she's been going over the 7-day limit, because every 7 days they have to swap. There's another detail in the movie that I didn't mention. It's called stabilizing. You have to extract basically spinal fluid from the host body, I guess. And every morning when she's Sue, she has to inject that into herself, and it keeps her, like, if she doesn't do that basically every day, she starts getting nosebleed. She's super, like, it basically seems like she's dying if she doesn't inject that into her every day. But so if you do go over the 7 days, even by like an hour, and if you watch the movie, you understand how it is. You have to take more of that fluid out of the host body, because if you don't take that fluid, you're going to be destabilized and you're probably going to die. I guess that's what happens. And so she's been taking extra fluid from Elizabeth's body, and justifying it, saying like, I've got too many important things going on. I have these deadlines I need to make. I've got interviews that I've got to do, and I have to do it as Sue. I can't do it as Elizabeth. That's basically a different person. And every time that she takes this fluid out of Elizabeth, she's sucking basically youth and basically sucking, I guess it's youth that she's sucking out of Elizabeth. And it starts with Elizabeth's finger. It becomes like very, very, it looks like it's a very old person's finger. Like, we're talking like 105-year-old finger. It's all like, it almost looks like it's decomposing, honestly. It's all grayish and rough and stuff. And but Sue has basically decided, I'm just going to milk this for all I can and try to stay in Sue's body for as long as possible, because I got this New Year's Eve show coming up and I just got to keep this train rolling. And so she like filled up all these, receptacles around the house, jars and everything up with the fluid, which she just like spent a whole night just sucking out of Elizabeth's body. And there's this like haunting, it's so creepy, this like one scene I remember. She's got a boyfriend who it's implied that she's been living with for a little while and has not been switching back to Elizabeth. So this is bad, because she's been sucking life force out of Elizabeth's body for a while without letting anything regenerate. And there's this creepy scene where she walks into the bathroom and she built this like secret compartment in the bathroom. If you watch the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And she's going back there to get more of the stabilizing fluid out of Elizabeth, and you just see that she has covered up Elizabeth's body with like a blanket, because my interpretation is because like it's like out of sight, out of mind. Like this is like there she's completely removed all value from her true like body, um and literally just sees it as the vehicle to which she can continue this life as Sue. Like it's under a blanket, hidden in this pitch black room, and you just see this shot of her walking in there and see the blanket over this body laying on the floor, and it's so visceral. And basically what happens is she goes in there and she needs more stabilizing fluid, because I guess she's run out. And so she's just like, oh, I'll just suck more out of Elizabeth's body. And so she sticks in this needle that she uses to suck out the fluid, and the fluid that she gets is like super brown and murky. Usually it's like pretty much clear, and like clearly looks like wrong. And she's like, oh, what's going on? And she calls the and by this point she's starting to feel the effects that you feel when you start to destabilize, because you haven't had the stabilizing fluid. So she's got like a nosebleed, like all these symptoms start to happen. And so she calls that number again, and she's like, I need help. Like, I ran out of stabilizing fluid. What can you do? And it's like, oh no, like, the only way for that to get back is like you need a switch. And she's like horrified by that, 'cause she's like, you can tell she was not planning on ever switching back, or at least she was just putting that thought out of mind, because it just, she didn't want to have to deal with that idea, because she's basically turned Elizabeth into like a corpse. Like it's creepy. But eventually she's like faced with the fact like she has to do it. And to put everything on another level of intensity, tomorrow night is New Year's Eve, which she's this huge show that she's been so excited to do, which will transform her career, all of that. That's the next day. And so she's like, no, I can't switch back to Elizabeth. I have to be, Sue tomorrow. But she's about to die because hasn't stabilized, so she doesn't have a choice. So she does the switching thing, and comes back as Elizabeth, who is like this completely gaunt, and like it's hard to explain. Like she almost looks like a turtle, with her like you kind of have to watch it to understand. It's horrifying the way she looks. And her boyfriend like hears a bunch of commotion, because when she turns back into Elizabeth, she's like coughing, and like, she's not well. Like she's had like all the life sucked out of her body. And she slams the door before he gets to the bathroom, and scares him away basically. And then what happens? Oh yeah. Um, as Elizabeth, which is now this unrecognizable, um, person, like really, really something else. She decides like I can't do this anymore. I need to terminate this process. Like this has gone too far. And so she calls up the. Oh, and by the way, I don't think I mentioned this. Once you suck out that life, once you go a day over the week limit and suck extra spinal fluid out to stabilize yourself as the other person, whatever effect that had on you, so like it makes her look older, you can never undo that. Once that's done, it's done. And so basically the first time she does that and she has the finger that's, that's really old, it basically feels like she's wrote off her value as a person at that moment, because like that alone is like she's so disgusted with it and realizes that there's no way back. Um, but anyway, she can tell that this is like this path is going to literally kill her and make her life more miserable than being dead. And so she has to order the Terminator fluid. And so she goes out to the PO box thing again in the middle of the heart of the city, I guess. And brings that back to the apartment. Um, and she pulls Sue into the living room area and injects the Terminator fluid, which basically just kills the second person, the person that emerged out of the back. So it's meant to just kill them to end the cycle. But after she's already injected Sue with that fluid and Sue's starting to die, she realizes like, oh crap, like what am I doing? Like Sue is literally the only thing lovable about me, is what she thinks. She's like, I literally hate myself the way I am. Like I there like my life has no meaning to me outside of Sue. And so she's full of regret, and she's like, she tries to save Sue's life. She starts doing like CPR, and then she eventually she does like a blood transfusion for self and Sue, which brings Sue back. But now they're both awake at the same time, which has never happened. And they like have this freaky moment where they're looking at each other like, how is this possible? Because they're supposed to be the same person. And yet like now they're both conscious and looking at each other. And it's just this moment where you're like, clearly these have actually become two different people. It's super fascinating. What it makes me think about is like, you know how at like Halloween time, there's a lot of Halloween parties, costume parties, and when people are wearing costumes, they act different than normal, right? Because you have this separation between yourself and the world. When people look at you, they don't see you, they see something else. And so it kind of liberates people to behave in ways that they wouldn't normally. And some people make really bad decisions just because they're wearing a costume in a social environment. And they feel this sense of anonymity. Sorry. And it allows them to behave in ways that you normally wouldn't. And it's kind of like they are a different person. like the day after, um, like you just imagine someone who was at a costume party or something and they made these terrible decisions or whatever, and then the day after they're back in their normal skin, if you will, and they're thinking about the decisions they made the other night, and they're going like, what was I doing? Like, why did I do that? Who was that? You know? And I think it's just like, I think it's this idea of like in the movie that like inhabiting that other identity does actually develop a separate personality, and it does actually give shape to a different person in some way. Um, and like it's this weird moment where you see both of them, which are in some way the same person, but in another, maybe more real sense, entirely different. Um, and like they can't relate to one another. Um, it's just, it is fascinating. The thematic, um, the thematic elements of this movie, like what I love about it is it's not very subtle. Um, a lot of it is pretty on the nose. And I used to be someone, because as a younger person, you have really annoying opinions. And I used to be someone who kind of thought about movies like, oh no, like if the messaging is heavy-handed and if it's like on the nose, that's a sign that it's like of lower quality or something. And nowadays I realize like, no, like what it it doesn't matter. Like, presentation, you can make whatever decisions with presentation you want, but it's the execution that matters. And like this movie, while it presents its themes in pretty clear terms, I think most people should be able to pick up what this movie is putting down, if you will. It executes it in a, I guess, tonally, in such a tonally consistent, it's tonally consistent with the world these characters are inhabiting for this, for the messaging, for the thematic messaging to be heavy-handed makes sense in the environment, because every other character is a like caricature of a person. It's almost like a bit of a cartoon world, where it works, it makes sense. Yeah. Um, I I have so many more thoughts about this movie. Um, she Sue when Sue comes back and she sees the empty vial of the terminating fluid, which she then quickly realizes that Elizabeth injected into Sue herself. She realizes that Elizabeth was trying to kill her. And so she's like infuriated and starts attacking Elizabeth and actually kills her in a in a very, very brutal, drawn out sequence. Like she's bashing her head into a mirror, which, the symbolism there. So much of this movie takes place in front of a mirror with like Elizabeth or Sue just staring at themselves in the mirror. And she bashes Elizabeth's face to a like unrecognizable pulp. And it's gory and like detailed and brutal. And then she like falls her, Elizabeth's near death but not quite dead, and she like crawls out to the foyer or whatever, and Sue kicks her like across the room. This is the part of the movie where it starts to get like it's already absurd, but like this is the part of the movie where it actually starts pulling out really intentionally comedic elements. This movie's so interesting because it's very, very like it is a dead serious topic, body image and self value or self worth. But it manages to do things with like tone that I've never seen a movie do, because it has some of the most extreme over the top body horror that I've ever seen. And I'm not a fan of body horror. Body horror makes me super uncomfortable. I can't watch Saw. I don't like any of those things. And the body horror in this movie was really hard for me to sit through. I had to, like I said, I had to close my eyes multiple times. But it manages to make all of these different elements work, even though they're like really like contradictory. Body horror that's not played for laughs works when they're not playing it for laughs, and then when it gets to this absurd level that the movie takes it to, they manage to actually play it for laughs because it gets to such a ridiculous degree. It's really impressive. So anyway, Sue literally kicks the shit out of Elizabeth. There's blood going everywhere. She's just kicking her in the side over and over and over and over. And she gets completely covered in blood. And yeah, Elizabeth dies. And then Sue remembers like, oh yeah, I've got the New Year's Eve show. So she gets herself ready and goes to the show. But then as she's getting ready, she starts feeling weird. She goes to the bathroom and her teeth start to fall out. And she like loses all the front teeth there. And she's about to host the biggest, show on the network. This is like the defining moment of her career. This will define a trajectory for the rest of her life. And she's just having this moment where she's realizing it's all over, as her teeth, like she can't even smile because she's missing all the teeth in the front of her mouth. And she tries to power through for a second, but then kind of realizes like, no, this is not going to work. So she runs home. And she's falling apart, like literally. And so she runs into the bathroom and finds the, what is it called? The substance, the substance that makes another you, another more perfect you come out. And she kind of decides like the only way that she has a shot of surviving, because she's going to die clearly. She killed Elizabeth, and I think the idea is that if Elizabeth dies, she's going to die because they have to both exist. I forget what the explanation is. I mean, it's very fantastical anyway, so they can have whatever rules they want. But she decides the only way she can survive is by injecting herself with the substance again. And so she does it, and this is where the movie goes like off the rails. Because like there's a very crazy sequence of the transformation happening, and but like it plays it where you don't see what the what she looks like as she's emerging. Um, but you know something has gone terribly wrong because things are just chaotic and out of control, and like there's crazy lights and everything, um, and so like it's all of a sudden showing from her point of view as the new creature that's just emerged, and she kind of stumbles over to the mirror, and like she looks at the mirror for 1 second, and like you see that she is a like monster. She's turned into a like she looks like something from The Thing, or like she looks like a monster. She's got faces in her back. She's got eyes, just some random spots. She's this mass of flesh with just like all this crazy. So she's got an arm sticking out of like her back randomly. It looks wild, and she's just looking at herself in the mirror, and she's just kind of like, well, okay. And she decides that she's going to go host the um, New Year Eve show anyway, and she puts on the dress that she was going to wear, which is like mangled because of how she has to stretch it out to fit around her now humongous body because it's so mutated. Um, and there's this hilarious part that got a laugh out of everyone in the theater, where she's getting herself all dressed up for the show. And so she's looking in the mirror. She just like sticks an earring straight into like the side of her head, and it doesn't make any sense. Like she doesn't even have an ear there. She just goes with an earring. And then like she's got a hair curler, but her hair is so mangled and like thin. There's just like one strand of hair that comes down here, and so she just wraps it around, and it like burns off. As there's just like sizzling there, and everybody in the theater was laughing at that. And it's playing this music that's like like any music that you would usually put in a scene where like the main character is dressing up for some special event, like that type of enchanted music like is what's playing, so it's like very ironic. um Sorry, I gotta do something real quick. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's hilarious and terrifying. Because like she's at this point she is a monstrosity. Um, uh, and somehow they've they've shot it into such an absurd, over the top level, and just took it somewhere that you were just like you couldn't imagine them ever going. Um, that like they're able to pull off these they're able to pull off visual humor, they're able to pull off like comedic timing stuff, like almost slapstick shit, like it it's impressive how it makes this switch in the final act to being almost like a comedy, like a very black comedy. um and it works really well, because I think it's highlighting the absurdity of the lengths that we go to, especially, for women, unfortunately, the lengths that we'll go to of destroying ourselves in order to meet these externally enforced beauty standards, like, and, you know, right now, Ozempic, right, is a huge thing in Hollywood. And you can recognize it's, you can see, what it looks like when someone's on an Ozempic, they have the gaunt sort of like the what do you call it? Like their eyes are like, receded back in their head almost. I don't know. There's a Ozempic look. And the restrictive diets that people put themselves on, eating disorders and all this stuff. It's like it's taking all these concepts to the most extreme and absurd degree to highlight, like, the real absurdity of the idea of putting yourself through so much destruction and harm just to be validated externally by the world and accepted and being seen as having value, and being valuable to yourself. Like, by taking it to this level, it just kind of like, it just makes sense, and it makes sense to be laughing at it at that point. It's so fascinating because there's so much genuine tragedy and like intensity in this movie, and that they're able to, in the final act, present it in a comedic way. Whoa, I'm seeing something right now I've never seen before in my life. There's a raccoon in a tree right now that's probably about 30 feet up a tree. I don't know how he got that high. I didn't know raccoons could climb trees like that. I'm impressed. Careful, guy. Careful. He's high up there. Anyway, the it's incredible. And so she gets to the studio where the New Year's Eve show is happening. And to get in, she took this man, there's other YouTubers who have time and the attention span to like write scripts are going to be breaking this movie down on like all the thematic symbolism and like all the parallels. There's all this imagery of things doubled throughout the movie, especially towards the beginning. There's all that, like, it's so well done just through framing and stuff. Just this repeated idea of like two things, side by side. And she had this huge picture, this huge framed, I guess, painting or photograph of herself in like her foyer, from when she was younger and, more beautiful. And to get like the meaning of that painting kind of evolves through the movie, because at points it's like a reminder of her past that she's proud of. At points she's humiliated by it, because as Sue, she thinks of herself as being so much better than her back then. And at points she like almost worships that image of herself because she's become such a unrecognizable and unredeemably alien from that image of herself. And in this final act, she destroys the picture because she wants to cut off her head from the picture of herself and tapes it over her face, or like sticks it to her face so that she can get into the studio by being passed off as herself with this. Clearly, it's just a. You can clearly see that it's just her face, like over herself, um, and like it works. Like she gets inside. Like they literally, someone looks at her, is like, "Oh yeah, where have you been? Come on in." Oh wait, no. That was a dream sequence. That was her fantasizing about it. Either way, she gets inside because I think there just wasn't anyone at the door, and she goes out on stage, um, as this monster, right? With her face from the picture over her real face now, um, and the crowd is just like confused at what they're looking at, and the performers, who are all topless, by the way. It's very interesting. Like, this world is like the the female body, and like, the objectification of the female body. They really want to like push that like way in your face of being like, this is like the reality of the situation. You have these beautiful women on stage because we're using them as sex objects, and so we're just going to present them topless. I think that's kind of the idea. um and the performers are kind of going like what's going on. And then eventually, like, she starts talking into the microphone, delivering the line that she's supposed to deliver. um and then the picture that she put over her face falls off, and everybody starts like reacting to it. And at some point someone starts screaming, and at this point the movie has gone full like camp. It's so over the top. There's like, people are having reactions that would be that would feel more at home in like a, maybe like a 60s or 70s horror movie, where there's a quick zoom in on someone's face and they're like, monster. Someone people are screaming different lines like that, and at one point someone goes, shoot the monster. And while this is happening, she's on stage going like, no, it's me, I'm Elizabeth, I'm Sue, I'm Elizabeth and Sue. And it's amazing. And basically pandemonium breaks out. People start attacking her, because she's a monster, and that's what you do in monster movies. And what happens? Some appendage of hers flies off or something, and blood starts shooting out like a fire hose, of her, whatever appendage it was. Like, it's absurd the amount of blood that is just being pushed out of her, to the point where it's like it's making it to the back of the the room of this, like, this big studio live audience, sort of a theater. Like the force of the blood is going like all the way. And so she's just covering everyone and everything in this place with her blood. And it's so absurd and ridiculous. And I kid you not, freaking heavy metal music is playing during this scene, as a bit, as a joke, because it's like being at a, like a black metal show where they're throwing like pig's blood into the audience. Like, they literally put in the movie heavy metal like music, like the all that, as this blood tsunami is just like drenching everyone. And at some point someone literally knocks her head off, which like explodes or whatever, and then a new head grows in its place. All this crazy stuff. And then she's running out of the building, running down Hollywood Boulevard or wherever it is. Um, and one of her legs like explodes as she's running just because she's in such a deteriorated and altered organic, biological state, like something brand new. Um, and she trips and she falls and her whole body explodes. And then the one thing that's like left is just her face, which is like in this kind of jello pudding. It kind of looks like a brain soup thing, and she just starts like squirming across the sidewalk, and she crawls all the way up to her Hollywood star in the ground, which is where the movie starts. Is the first shot of the movie is the Hollywood star that says Elizabeth Sparkle on there. And the beginning of the movie, you see the beginning of the movie is like that star was being made, and so it's brand new and everyone's really excited about Elizabeth, and she's like the biggest thing in Hollywood. And then like it shows a time lapse kind of happening. You see the seasons change, and you see people care less and less. They stop taking pictures of the star. They stop looking at it really, and it just becomes something that people walk over. A guy accidentally drops his burger and gets ketchup over the whole thing, and he tries for like 3 seconds to like clean it up, and he just goes, yeah, whatever, and then walks off. That is where she ends up. At the end of the movie, just as a face, right over her Hollywood star. And in that moment, like a spotlight literally shines down on her, and she's having all these visions of being accepted and adored and loved, and she's got this big smile on her face. And it's like this moment of her finally fully accepting herself and feeling as though she's, content, and then she literally just like liquefies into a puddle of blood right there. And then it fades. Well, it doesn't fade. It transitions into a daytime shot because that was at night. And it looks just like the ketchup from the guy dropping his burger on that star. It looks exactly the same. Like her blood on the star is like the same layout as the ketchup from that burger. And we're just looking down the star with this blood stain on it. And then like a sidewalk sweeper just comes up and cleans the star. And then like there's nothing left. And I'm pretty sure that's where the movie ends. And I, not a lot you can really like say after that. Like I was my wife and I were kind of just looking at each other going like, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen. That was the craziest movie we've ever seen. And like, today I stand by that movie is absolutely wild. In this day and age, movies are kind of like, movies are not what they used to be culturally. People don't, I think since COVID, like movies are just not the same thing they used to be. People rarely, I guess it's actually maybe been changing a little bit recently where people like with Dune, Barbie, Oppenheimer, whatever, there have been more things that people like actually care about going out and seeing. And I'll be really interested to see what happens with this movie. Because I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything as audacious. Like this movie is the definition of the word audacious. It goes places that you just would never imagine a movie being willing to go. And the thing is, it's so ridiculous and over the top and funny with how over the top it goes, but it's so serious about the commentary it's making, and the themes hold true through the whole thing, even though it switches tones the way it does. Um, it never cheapens any of it. It's really amazing how they did that. I'm sure analysts will be, YouTube, what do you call them? Video essayists will be talking about this movie for years to come. But I want to hear someone break down like why this movie works so well. Because it's so extreme. It is so extreme. It is an extreme experience. You feel at times like you should leave the theater, because you're so uncomfortable with what you're watching. And yet, by the end of the movie, you're like, that was phenomenal, and that's just like, that is rare. I think that's truly rare. So yeah, I'm a big fan of The Substance. And I think I need to like allow the movie to seep in more, because there's so many thoughts I have about like the themes. And it's like, there's playing with the ideas of this being like a drug addiction. It's called The Substance, and it's literally a drug that you inject into yourself that creates a different person. You could think of that as like an addict, like there's so many different angles. There's so many different ways you can analyze this movie. But all of those angles seem to work together to create a bigger, something bigger. Because like, obviously, like, yes, one of the biggest things this movie is about is like self-acceptance and, beauty standards and body image issues and, mental health problems. But it's like, it's about more at the same time. I don't know. Yeah, I'm a big fan. Anyway, this video is approaching 2 hours, so I'm going to cut myself off here. And I'll be back sometime. Yeah. All right, bye.